what I wanted to share with you this morning is something that will kind of require you to muster your energies and focus. And it's a practice which, can be engaged deliberately to integrate parts of yourself that are, that are kind of activating and stimulating and maybe not wanted, but it's also a practice that can just become very inherent in how you live and meet your environment. Because intimacy is really a function of how you meet your environment. It's not what's in your environment. It's not even the special people or special objects or special, animals or environment. It's really you meeting that in front of you. And it's we're never really taught how to do this, but it's worth kind of focusing on for a refresher into how to get into it. And I really don't envision this as a therapeutic approach, but it's similar to some therapeutic approaches, such as focusing, for instance. But it's really a life practice. That's the first thing I want to say. And, what else? It's built upon investigation or observation or inquiry. It's built upon your being present and awake to what's right here now in this moment. And this is just a reminder that I talked the other night about the presence of light as awareness. It isn't even consciousness yet until, it has been embedded in your body-mind and acknowledged in your body-mind. And then it moves from just the neutral impact of light, which is illuminating everything, always, in all directions, at all times. It moves from that to your ownership or your inclusion or your conscious acceptance and even surrender to what is in front of you. So it's based upon, the knowledge of that you are the observer. You are actually the source of what's in front of you. If what's in front of you is there, you are the one who is registering that. And this is a process, intimacy is a process of you owning it and letting it fully impact you. So we talk about feeling all the way through your experience. And when you feel all the way through your experience, then you encounter the pulsation of the opposites, the pulsation of the polarity. Because if something is experienced very completely, it flips and it turns into something else. And either it turns into its opposite, or it kind of like dissipates into everything, so that you're left with a sense of openness and wonder and presence and, expansion. And that's what creates the intimacy, when you have received the phenomena completely and fully, and let it impact you, let it open you, let it elevate you, even if it's negative. Then there is a sense of, this is me. I am this. and you become intimate with all phenomena. So I really think that's what the deepening in this awakening is, to become more and more capable of this intimacy with all of life. And that's what's so delicious. And, even if it's difficult, it's what's delicious about life. It's what's alive and stimulating and interesting and keeping you going and, or helping you learn and shift your attitude and grow larger. Anyway, what I want to do this morning is 2 exercises, and they are about self and other. And because this pattern in relationships, self and other, is basically established in relationship to your early important relationships. So that's what I want you to call up. Okay, so first of all, you look all pretty relaxed in here. So take a couple of breaths and take them in at the top of your lungs and your throat and your nose, and feel the breath as it travels into your chest and your belly and your lower body, your pelvis area, your lower body, and even down into your feet. And take a couple of those breaths. And envision the breath as a soft, tender opening of your whole being. It's a way in. The breath is a bridge between spirit and matter. It's a way in. So even as you're breathing and focusing more narrowly, you are operating in the field of light. And what's being revealed is, maybe in your breath, is what's close to you, what's in the matter of you. And just run by yourself the intention to fully open, to soften, to receive, to let yourself be affected. And it's okay if you're not ready to do all that, and there's a pulsation between being open and then closed, and being available and letting phenomena fade into the background. That's a natural pulsation. So it's not as if you have to be riveted to something. Just follow the natural pulsation of your engagement with whatever you're aware of. Okay, so how you meet your relationship, self and other, and this other is anything that is in your awareness. It's the room, it's another person, it's your internal condition, it's your mental condition, it's your nervous system being, at ease or revved up. It's the atmosphere that you sense in the air. The other is whatever you are in relationship to. So, but I'm going to invite you to kind of call up in your awareness and allow an important, key, significant relatedness, relationship, to come into your mind. And some relationship where you have had the feeling of intimacy. Maybe it wasn't for the entire relationship. Maybe it was at poignant moments. It came to you the feeling of intimacy. So call up that relationship, just let it appear. Maybe it will appear as an image. Maybe it will appear as a kind of feeling focus. Anyway, a significant relationship where you felt intimacy. And then just note to yourself, what are the qualities of intimacy? What manifests as, the surface of intimacy, the medium level of intimacy, the depth of intimacy? I'm going to suggest that we associate intimacy with comfort, openness, lack of fear, security, maybe delight and joy, or maybe just simply comfortable abiding with the other. Maybe we associate it with feelings of love and flow, back and forth. So now, let this relationship come into even more clarity. So feel the whole, what do I want a word? Feel the whole atmosphere of the relationship. What about it has been valuable to you, has meaning? What did you seek out through this relationship? Let that come into more clarity. In other words, it's sort of bizarre, but all relationships are reciprocal. In other words, you use another, and you are used by another. And that is not bad. That is how it is. And that is why it feels important to you. So what did you reap from this relationship? And then I will also ask you, moving further along with the whole of the relationship, what were the limits of this relationship? What did you eventually bump up against? Where did you discover you wanted more? You wanted more empathy. You wanted more acknowledgement. You wanted more union. I don't know. What more did you want? What were the limits? And how were you tested in these limits? And take note of the overall outcome of this relationship for you. Outcome. Like if you're looking at a parental relationship, what were the imprints that lasted? What were the tendencies that arose in you out of this relationship encounter? If it was a love relationship that went wrong, what were you left with? Were you left with certain opinions about your being? Maybe you felt inadequate. Maybe you felt fear to give in so much again. Maybe you felt some kind of regret that you didn't show enough of yourself, or you didn't demand enough, enough mutuality, enough give and take. But anyway, kind of consider how this relationship, what parts of it came to resolution, and what parts are still open to debate in your mind. Well, it was this way. Well, it was also that way. Well, looking at this other, can you kind of make a general assessment at how strong your commitment was? How strong you were committed to engaging? So we often say in this work that this self-other field and relationship is the most challenging part of the work. And it offers the most opportunity for growth. So kind of like looking at the whole of this relationship, kind of assess what kind of growth it offered you. And what did you learn, I guess, would be another way to say it. And did any pattern come out of this? Like greater trust, greater caution, making firmer boundaries, letting down your boundaries, persistence through glitches, just what came out of the relationship. So, if you have an assessment of the other in this relationship, the practice of inquiry and self-other reminds us that whatever we were aware of and became aware of is a quality which is of ourselves. So, can you allow that any judgments or, any even delights that you had in this relationship is actually your own being? You saw it in the other, yes, but the fact that you saw it means that it is. And yet the paradox is it's the other. Because if it's only you and you're completely merged in this relationship, there's no dynamic. There's only stillness, or I don't know. There's no dynamic. And if you are relating to the other as only the other, there might be only conflict and tension. So paradox means that there's both. You are the other and you're not the other. And the intimacy can arise not because you've merged with the other, but because you are able to grow with the other through the tension and conflict and exchange and asserting yourself and receiving the other. In other words, a true mutuality. Respect for the other and respect for yourself. And the embrace of that paradox. Okay, so now just take a couple of breaths, and I want you to come back into our group here. And notice as you come back, you are in fact engaging with another object or other, which has got more components in it. And I just want to check in with you. Like, what did you find? What did you encounter? Is that fairly easy to do? Yeah, because you're all good at that. We know that. And did you find that some patterns in yourself emerged from this encounter with another in your life, in your history, in your present moment? Did you discover anything new? I mean, you know.
Similar sort of revelation, because I sort of feel like I know that it's me. Look at my patterns that happen in this relationship, and so much interchange about them. When we came to that statement, it was like a jolt went through me. Like, oh yes, right. I mean, it was like my being, a whole being, sort of resonated with that. Yes, it's all me. So there was like a deepening of that knowing in a more cellular way.
Yeah, and you know, I find that it's kind of a humbling. But you know, I can't resist the pattern of like, yes, he's like that, it's his fault, you know. And noticing that I have, you know, kind of resentments in my own patterning. And it's a real, like, becoming aware and being willing to soften around that. So that I'm not just caught in an old pattern of continually expressing resentments or the negative.
Paradox that it is both our perception and, if the other is a manifestation of consciousness arising, so there's that thing that's happening, whatever that's causing the triggering. Mm-hmm. So the paradox is it's both here and there, because both here and there are actually just here.
Right. Right. Relationship. How we long for it and how we are triggered by it, right?
And then also being able to see how that comes up in so many relationships. So if I could just speak it, the thing.
Yeah.
It was the main thing in the relationship. Separated. Was not feeling met. So profoundly not feeling met. And so when you said that, it's like, so the first place I took it is like, oh, I wasn't meeting him.
Mm-hmm.
But then also those ways that I don't meet myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have that experience in a lot of relationships. A lot of relationships with so that feels like a further discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just both, how I don't meet others.
Well, ultimately, we're singular enough that we're obligated to meet ourselves because other people can't be with us all the time and provide that function. But as you're speaking, I'm reminded that sometimes in relationship, it's one person who's seeming to do all the work. Oh, I'm not meeting this person, and let me just try harder and take another tack and turn myself into well, we always end up saying a pretzel. Let me twist this way so that I can now meet the other. And that can be a tendency that one person can carry all the work in the relationship. But I guess the only way to handle that is somehow be able to speak it. I feel like our relationship is wonderful. I want it. I'm really working hard for it. But I feel like I'm the one doing all the work. To confess what you're doing, what's happening. I'm really trying hard to hang in, and I would like you to know that, how hard I'm trying. Because if the other person may not, you may be doing it so well, the other person doesn't understand how hard you're working, what you're doing, how you're holding the relationship.
I was interested for myself how, because I was partway through the exercise and I realized there was a different relationship I really needed to address, so I kind of did them both, simultaneously. But my responses were so different in both of them. So, in one relationship, I was really just experiencing my absolute devotion and complete commitment and 100% in, and I'll go anywhere, to support and sustain what's possible here. And the other relationship is one that sort of started that way. And then when I wasn't feeling met in the way I wanted to be met, how I kept showing up and then was like, okay, I'm all done. But what was interesting to me is that when I was applying sort of that last piece of how is this me, what I'm aware of is how different I am in relationship with sort of different kinds of people, so to speak. So, it's really, in my marriage to my husband, it's easy for me to be all in and to stay devoted. In this particular friendship, I'm aware of how much I was conditional, how much I was not daring, how much I was not committed to going all the way or to saying everything that was true, which is partly what I was upset with her about, at not being able to go all the way with me and meet me. So I'm just sort of fascinated with how I can play both sides of the coin, even.
Yeah. Well, different relationships trigger different selves, right? Because we're not a single self, right? We're a complexity of I's. In one relationship, I am this. And what occurs to me to ask you is, and do we just assume intimacy with only one other? And we call that person our intimate partner? Why wouldn't we call all of our beings in our, in our neighborhood, in our household, in our lives, intimate? Why wouldn't we assume that we would like to be at that level with them? I mean, that's just an interesting question.
So resonant for me because when you were introducing this and you were saying, that we are in fact intimate with everything that we encounter, and I felt the truth of that. And one of my really intimate relationships that recently has undergone a turn is my relationship with my dog.
Yes.
Because,
Yes.
we've been living in this really complicated, environmentally challenging kind of situation, and she really, as an animal, feels that so deeply, smoke and danger, so forth. So I have these rules, she's not allowed in my room at night, so forth. I totally suspended all of those. She's sleeping in my room, and then we brought her with us because there was no place to put her, and now she's in a kennel. I'm thinking, I wonder how she's doing. She's playing well with others because she's not really a gregarious dog. But it's like 11 years I've had this being part of my life, and I actually shared about this in my mutuality group recently. It was like the amount of intimacy I felt toward my dog. I just really love her, and I've had to recognize my own limitations in terms of that. Is she really needing me? She's my best friend. Why doesn't she return my calls? But I mean, it's like, so I had to really examine that a little bit. And I feel intimacy with plant life and so forth frequently. So
Yeah. It's kind of easier with plants because they're planted, right? They can't follow us around and jump on us and beg for food, Yeah, I mean, our pets are really our intimates. I mean, they move into the intimate spaces of our lives. And we have to face the limits of that relationship. And we gratefully accept the pleasures. But even they can become demanding, More pets,
I guess just a couple thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not really, Lauren. Stop me if I start talking. And resonances of sort of work always kind of amazed me because right before this, some people were talking about how come, as adults, we really don't just tell people pay attention to me. Just directly like that. And I was just thinking with dogs, I mean, dogs aren't shy about that. That's pretty much what they do. And I mean, they can be conditioned a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but really they don't have that kind of, big brain consciousness where they'll,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay, they kind of do, but still,
Mm-hmm.
but whereas, I mean, adults almost never come out and just directly, which, I guess is partly because that's like a form of daring that,
Mm-hmm.
we're not willing to undertake. And I guess I'm kind of circling back to what you were saying about doing all the work in the relationship.
Yeah.
And so, and this might be so obvious that I apologize if I'm just catching up with the show, but, to what extent is doing the work like a reflection of what you need and a lack of ability to express your own desires? And I'm thinking about a former relationship of mine where there was this continual frustration about the person felt they were doing all the work, but at the same time, they're really flat out lack the ability to express what they need and literally said, well, you should just know.
Oh, right. That's a big one.
I remember the feeling of being flabbergasted that, well, how the hell do I know? Because I only know what I'm feeling, and I don't know. I feel like the bed is fine when floor's not on, or the floor,
All right.
to use a small example, but that would be kind of emblematic of the whole thing, right? The cover wasn't put on right for everything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that is a huge theme. The child in ourselves that was cared for and everything was provided begins to assume that that's how the world is. But like, I'm just thinking, what could you have said? You'll have to think about this. And let's just do the next exercise, because that's what I wanted you to do. Great. That is a dynamic that many people have. Don't you know that I need this or that? Or, I'm so disappointed if it doesn't show up. Okay, this is a similar exercise, but I wanted to take you further with it. Okay, this time, choose an intimate relationship or a relationship which is very frustrating for you, where, you don't particularly have a clue how to do it, and you would like to move further. So it's a frustrating situation. Let that relationship come to mind. Okay, take a couple of breaths, breathe softly, and soften your whole being around it in order to let it come forward to you. And in order for you to be present to this relationship. Now ask yourself in all honesty, do you wish to deepen or change this relationship? Do you really wish to? Or are you sort of fed up at this point and you'd like to be angry and, accuse this relationship? So now, as you are holding this relationship in the light of your own inner awareness, notice the details of the other, the details. Let the details come to mind. What is the overall tone of the relationship for you? Allow or invite some defining moments of the relationship to emerge. Defining moments that set your judgment about the relationship. In those defining moments, notice in more detail your own emotions and thoughts and your level of acceptance or lack of acceptance or comfort. Or lack of comfort. What exactly is the light reflecting back to you? The quality, the quality of the object over there. That person may be basically, easygoing or edgy, or what is the quality? Unresolved anger in that person, or too intellectual and not enough heart, whatever. What are the qualities that actually stand out, that are being reflected to you about this person. So even though it could be painful, don't try to manipulate yourself yet, but it could be painful. But allow those qualities to just penetrate you instead of, holding off or backing out or protecting instead of protecting. Just allow yourself to be penetrated by the actual, form and reality of that other over there. Because in spite of the fact that we know it is ourselves and we have those traits, whatever they are, that form actually has its own reality and function in the field of relationship. And it has its own integrity. Maybe a person who's inherently kind of like penetrating or inherently avoidant or, inherently loving and cooperative. But those are qualities that actually belong to that other. Allow them to penetrate you. Receive those qualities deeply, even if you feel they're negative. Let them penetrate your energy system as far as they're inclined to penetrate, so that you're not warding off or avoiding or making yourself into, a cloud where it can't hurt you too much. Let them penetrate you for what they are. So these are a piece of reality, you could say. That person is real the way they are. And in a certain sense, you had nothing to do with their reality, their traits, their patterns. I mean, you may play into them and evoke certain things from them. But even so, that is how they are. That's the reality. I mean, this is the piece of the Dharma where the conditional world is real in this moment. It's real. It's not, what if or never mind. It's real. It's penetrating you. It may be aggravating you, it may be hurting you, but let it penetrate you. And just notice your tendency as you open to the other. How far down are you penetrated? Your mind, your heart, your belly? How are you left feeling? Cool, warm, distant, defensive, fighting, doubting, hating? Because you've been penetrated like this? Inclined to rationalize, justify, be in the other person's head and understand them. Oh, I understand this person had a bad history, blah, blah, blah. What are you inclined to do upon being penetrated like that? Now, I want to suggest that there are places in a difficult relationship where you do have control. And you know, it is legitimate after being penetrated and getting the lay of the land with this person that you may find ways to manage and preserve yourself, to manage the dynamic. Maybe you speak about it. Maybe you make a distance. Notice what you do have control over. Maybe you decline to reveal yourself and you lose the intimacy potential. But you know, it's only fair. The self has to be preserved too. You, as the self, have an integrity that's meaningful and real and worth preserving. So we're always making these adjustments in relationship. Kind of assess how much of yourself are you able to bring to this relationship. Now, I want to suggest a way you can work with a difficult relationship. And you can even do this in real time with the person. But they won't know you're doing it exactly. But there's a way in which you can build a bridge and incrementally step onto that bridge and move closer. Move closer in terms of revealing yourself and in terms of making contact with the other. And in terms of understanding and affirming the other. All those things are possible, but incrementally, I want you to do it incrementally. But first now, just envision a bridge between I, myself, and my integrity as a self, and that person over there and their integrity as themselves. Just kind of imagine an energetic bridge. There is a link, of course, we've talked about that. That, you know, subject and object arise as interfacing, mutually reciprocal pairs, right? So there's no mistake that you're with this person, but you can take it little by little. So you've built a bridge, an energetic bridge. Now take a step onto that bridge and see how far energetically you can tolerate going toward the person over the bridge. Maybe you go out a third of the way. You don't have to go all the way in the beginning. Now, if you're feeling like you need to be more cautious or to protect yourself or to renew and refresh your own point of view, go back. Go back home to yourself. Do that now, just as an exercise. Back home to myself. Yes, I am me. I'm in my own energy. I have my own integrity. I have my own perspective. I have my own opinions. These are legitimate. They're not illegitimate. They're legitimate. And you're entitled to them. Okay, now take a breath, refreshed in your own self-knowing. Now, Feel your feet on the bridge again and take yourself back over to the other. Maybe you can go further, but don't quite yet go all the way over the bridge. This bridge is made of self and other. And you have, on the bridge, you have access to both. Okay, let's say you can go halfway over the bridge. Now, observe the other, observe the object from halfway over. You're willing to meet the other halfway. Observe them from here. Is it different from observing them now than it was when you began bringing them forward into your awareness? Has your assessment of them softened or become more intense? Just, is it the same or different? Now, you may be feeling, as you go closer to toward their point of view, toward their experience, toward their view of you, you may be feeling more uncomfortable. Remember, this is what mutuality is. Like, oh yes, I'm seeing who you are, and I'm strong enough to kind of reflect that to you. So reflect to the person that you get who they are, as much as you can, from halfway across the bridge. Oh, you mean this is what you would like, this is how you're feeling, this is what you need, this is how I feel about you, and that makes you happy or unhappy. So just have that conversation with them. Okay, now you've spoken your truth halfway toward them. Now find out, do you need to come back and refresh yourself into your own sense of self, your own field, your own castle, your own cathedral, your own inner space? Well, come back and tune in again to yourself. Now, having refreshed who you are to yourself, who you know yourself to be, what you know your truth to be, and how you might be available to meet them again with a little bit more either and both, compassion and truth. Go further over the energetic bridge you've made to them. Maybe you go almost into their space and into their energy and into their reality. Let it penetrate you from here. You're almost into their whole reality. Let it penetrate you from here. You have dared to come closer to something that might be uncomfortable. Imagine from here any words you might exchange with them. Let them come. Let your words come to them. As you feel more vulnerable in their space, breathe softly and access your own depth, your own knowing, your own willingness to be in with them. awareness of self and other penetrate you more completely, of self and other, penetrated by your own condition as well as theirs. See if you can feel the commonality of this experience of self and other. So absorb that commonality. And you know, this is what we say. You can't pin it down specifically. You cannot know specifically why you're attracted, why you're with this other person, how fate brought you here. You cannot know why they are the way they are specifically. You can't know that. In other words, this is the mystery. This relationship is truly mysterious. It should cause you to kind of like knit your brow. Why this? It isn't even why, isn't even important. Just that it came to you. You're attracted to it. They're attracted to you. And this attraction requires you come to terms with relatedness. Who you are, who they are, your appearance here, how much capacity you have to be close to the fire of this relationship. But always remember, you can go back. So go back now across the bridge you've made. This is available to you any point in the relationship. Go back across the bridge. You know you're connected, but you're not condemned to be on the other side. You can come back. And creating distance in and out, back and forth, is the dynamic of any intimate relationship. Closeness, distance, they're both required. So come back to your own self, establish the contact with your own being, and notice, how have you been overall affected by being in relationship to a difficult situation? How have you been affected? Do you feel expanded, instructed, devastated, deepened, made wondrous, made humble, made triumphant? How do you feel having gone through a difficult relationship? Now back home in your own field, notice how you feel. And breathe softly and let that penetrate you. Feel your body soften. You've been through an ordeal. You allow that you've been through an ordeal and that you've met a challenge and that you've done whatever you've done in the best of your ability. And that it's added to your knowledge of life and self. Okay, take a deep breath all the way down to your toes and come back to our group. feel any change in your understanding or capacity for intimacy? Intimacy, that's what it is. Meeting the other. Meeting yourself. Entering into the dynamics of self and other. You know, my former guru had a question, an inquiry question. Avoiding relationship? Everything is relationship. Everything is relationship, you know? And are you in or out? Are you avoiding? And remember, it's legitimate to pull back. You don't have to take on the entire world all at once. So are you in or out? Can you go far enough in with enough understanding and enough allowing yourself to be penetrated that you arrive at the feeling of intimacy with everything? Intimacy with the other, whatever that other is. And intimacy with yourself, having allowed yourself to be penetrated. Okay, that's it.